gone hard and early, and I think we have avoided, in fact I know we have avoided, something altogether worse. That's weeks, if not months, of being closed.
I can't remember a time when our state has been challenged to such an extent. Not a single one of these decisions was taken lightly.
The country's two biggest cities are back in lockdown, with outbreaks that continue to grow.
This particular variant is really challenging us, and so it is a real eye-opener about how long we can possibly aim to keep in this holding pattern, keep it COVID zero.
With no doubt there's elements of frustration. We could have been so much further along the road to vaccine coverage.
I got home from work on Monday and I was getting ready to go to bed, and I got a notice from Western Health Department and basically telling us that we can't leave the building.
Melbourne's lockdown was sparked by the spread of the virus at this apartment block in the city's inner west. Residents, including Eleni Tekesta, are now 1 week into their strict 14-day quarantine.
So we've been advised not to leave our rooms at all, like our apartments. We can't open the doors for any other reason apart from, getting parcels delivered to us or putting out the rubbish outside for them to collect.
Most of Melbourne's cases are linked to a crew of removalists from Sydney. The removalists infected the apartment block residents more than 10 days ago. One of those residents, a man in his 60s, then went to a pub in the city before attending an AFL match at the MCG. He unwittingly spread the virus at both venues. From those two sites, COVID-19 has stretched across the state, from Phillip Island to Mildura. As of today, there are 81 active cases, and the number of exposure sites has swelled to nearly 300.
Once we found out they weren't even wearing masks, I was kind of questioning every little symptom I had.
Freight has to keep going, and we've managed to do that safely through most of the way. But you only need some people to be operating in less than ideal ways.
We've been told to shut immediately, do a deep clean, and that myself has to quarantine for 14 days.
Josh Pigden had a close call with the virus after he trained with the man who later tested positive. It's put his new business on ice.
Definitely came into contact with the person, coached him twice and then trained with him another time. But I don't think, hopefully we haven't got it. We only opened up in January. We've already been through the February lockdown, then the May or April one that was week, and then another week and then another week.
For Melburnians, this is a painfully familiar scene. Empty streets, deserted stores, and the feeling of Groundhog Day for the 5th time around. The lockdown is now set to be extended beyond the 5 days originally planned. And over the weekend, Victorians were warned to be ready for what could unfold this week.
We just need to brace ourselves for any possibility.
Melbourne-based epidemiologist Professor Catherine Bennett is optimistic the outbreak will be brought under control soon.
Most people in lockdown have very few contacts, so that gets much easier to follow up. That gives me hope that we could get on top of this by the end of the week.
But the situation in Sydney is looking less promising.
The data we saw yesterday on the exposure sites show that every person in Greater Sydney is at risk.
Sydney's outbreak started a month ago with an airport limo driver. It soon moved to retail and hospitality venues in the eastern suburbs. But COVID is now spreading among workplaces and families in the city's southwest. Today, the state recorded 98 new cases. 20 of those were infectious while in the community. Another 17 were in isolation for part of their infectious period. Crucially, it's those numbers that have grown during the past month. And experts say those numbers will be key to measuring the success of the lockdown.
The key number to focus on will be the number that are infectious within the community. At the moment, that's been around about the sort of 30 to 40 mark, depending on how that's defined. We really need to get that declining through this week. Hopefully, we can get it down to 10 or 15 by the end of the week.
Fairfield in Sydney's southwest is one of the 3 local government areas that's become the epicentre of COVID infections in New South Wales, where stricter lockdown conditions have been imposed. Residents are banned from leaving the area for work except for jobs deemed essential, and they must be tested every 72 hours.
For somebody like myself who works 6 days, and while we are essential workers, it's very hard for me. So working 6 days, I've got to find something that's open 24 hours or open late.
James El-Khoury is a dentist who lives and practices in Fairfield, but also travels to the Central Coast to work.
And then I'm gonna go to your nose. 1 here, second all the way up. Done.
It's not the most comfortable thing.
See you guys. Bye.
People are still very confused. People are still very stressed. People are still very angry. I am still getting messages from constituents asking, am I allowed to go to work tomorrow?
On Saturday, the New South Wales government banned all but health and emergency workers from leaving 3 local government areas in Sydney's southwest for work. A few hours later, it amended the rules to add several dozen other exemptions, including workers employed in education, retail, transport and manufacturing. Fairfield councillor Di Lay says the changes have been confusing for residents.
The majority of our people are non-English speaking backgrounds, and trying to grapple all this information, it's just daunting and very overwhelming. I think 69% of our population are essential workers. It's not a work where you work from the laptop, can Zoom in, can call in. We are the engine of Australian society. We are actually the ones that contribute to a lot of the manufacturing, a lot of the businesses that are out there.
The decision over the weekend to halt construction across Sydney for 2 weeks prompted outcry.
The last 24 hours have been, really challenging. The construction industry it's the backbone of our economy, and to shut it off overnight, it's very hard to swallow.
Evan Yalda's construction company Qua is based in Fairfield.
There's a lot of people in the industry that are actually self-employed. Painters, tilers, a lot of other trades. I mean, for them, it's very simple. No work equals no pay. How are they going to make ends meet? 2 weeks is a long time.
The picture in New South Wales, particularly in Sydney, looks like we'll be under stay-at-home sort of orders for some weeks to come. We don't know whether that'll be, 2, 3, several weeks to come.
Experts agree there's only one way out of the cycle of lockdowns.
The vaccination rates are the thing that we need to protect us from serious illness and death. We can't rely on our contact tracing and testing to do that now going ahead, because it's going to take so much more work.